Hello, Logan here. I got one person today. All right. Good morning, everyone. In high school history classes, we learn about the moments that shaped nations. We learn the official narratives. The assassination of Abraham Lincoln, for example, the complexities of the Cold War, the resignation of a president during Watergate. These are presented as historical facts, isolated events. But if we pull back the curtain just slightly, we find a different reality. They were all, at their core, conspiracies. Secret plans by groups to do something harmful or unlawful. My goal today is not to convince you of any specific theory. My goal is far more important. It is to show you how developing a critical lens, how understanding that conspiracies do happen in the real world, can empower us to prevent future tragedies. Today, we'll examine the misconception that all conspiracies are crazy talk. We'll look at the verifiable inconsistencies surrounding key figures and events of 9/11, and not to spread fear, but to emphasize why challenging the official narrative is a civic duty. The term conspiracy theory has become a dismissive label, a quick way to shut down conversation. It implies irrationality, tinfoil hats, and baseless rumors. But history, verifiable history, tells a different story. Elites, corporations, and political powers have conspired against public interests repeatedly. Think about Abraham Lincoln's assassination. It wasn't just John Wilkes Booth acting alone. It was a calculated plot to kill the top 3 Union officials simultaneously: the President, the Vice President, and the Secretary of State. A genuine, proven conspiracy. The Cold War was built on a foundation of spies, double agents, and stolen documents, a dance of clandestine operations. And Watergate? According to the Levin Center of Oversight and Democracy, 48 people were ultimately convicted of crimes related to that break-in and subsequent cover-up. A conspiracy planned in the highest office in the land to subvert democracy. These aren't theories, they're facts. They prove that the powerful do at times operate in secret for their own gain. Understanding this reality helps us to develop the critical thinking skills to distinguish between plausible threats and baseless rumors. If we had been more vigilant, more questioning, could we have prevented these things? Maybe, but we must accept that these are possible. This foundation of historical precedent is crucial when we look at more recent and painful events. Which brings up 9/11, and one of its key players, a man who, by a twist of fate, missed his routine lunch, Larry Silverstein. And Larry Silverstein was the New York businessman who leased the entire World Trade Center complex just 6 weeks before the attacks. According to the reports and publications like the New York Times, he and his partners put down approximately $125 million as part of a 99-year lease. The towers were subsequently insured against acts of terror. On that fateful morning, Larry, who always lunched at Windows on the World in the North Tower, narrowly avoided death due to a last-minute dermatologist appointment. A lucky coincidence, perhaps. But the coincidences don't stop there. After 9/11, Silverstein made a bold claim, arguing that the 2 separate plane impacts constituted 2 separate terrorist attacks. He sought double the insurance payout, which was over $7.1 billion, on a $3.5 billion policy. According to sources like NBC News and AM Best Reports, he eventually settled for a total payout of approximately $4.55 billion after a protracted legal battle. Then there's the World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper that was not hit by a plane but collapsed hours later. Many structural engineers argue the collapse at free fall speed defies the laws of physics without controlled demolition. Silverstein himself recounted the day in the PBS documentary America Rebuilds. He mentioned a conversation with the fire department commander regarding the heavily damaged building, where he suggested maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. He stated that they made that decision to pull, and we watched the building collapse. The use of pull it in context remains highly scrutinized by experts who question the official collapse mechanism. These facts, the massive insurance payouts, the convenient dermatologist appointment, World Trade Center 7, create inconsistencies and demand an explanation that the official narrative struggles to fully provide. And speaking of people who benefited, we must look at the highest office in the land. The official narrative says George W. Bush was in a classroom, waited for the situation to stabilize, and this led the charge for the war on terror, quickly invading Afghanistan to target al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. The world rallied behind the unified cause. The alternative theory, often called a false flag, suggests the elements within the US government were either complicit or allowed the attacks to happen to provide pretext for military intervention. A false flag is an action designed to appear as though it was carried out by someone else to justify a response. What facts fuel this theory? The deep historical connection between the Bush and bin Laden families through oil and investment ties. According to reporting from The Economist and the Denver Post on 9/11 itself, George Bush Sr., and Osama bin Laden's brother Shafiq were both in attendance at the same Carlyle Group investor conference in Washington, D.C. The Carlyle Group specialized in buying defense companies, and following the onset of the wars, defense spending exploded. The Carlyle Group sold those companies for a massive profit. Halliburton Oil, a company previously run by Vice President Dick Cheney, also saw record profits from federal contracts related to the war, estimated by the Financial Times to be around $39.5 billion. The perception that these firms and their investors benefited financially from war-related government decisions has fueled ethical concerns for years. The theory is that a corporate oligarchy may have used political influence to devise a secret attack to justify a war, all for the acquisition of oil, defense contracts, and massive financial gain. This isn't just theory. It's a look at who ultimately profited from the tragedy. And in conclusion, I will say, so why does any of this matter? It matters because if even a fraction of these inconsistencies point toward a manufactured war, we the public contributed to needless death and global turmoil based on a flawed premise. Living in a world full of potential conspiracies means we must constantly pay attention. The consequence of absent-mindedness is injustice and tyranny. We challenge those in power, demand transparency, and scrutinize every official narrative with a critical eye. In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. It is our responsibility to seek the truth, to question the narrative, and to prevent tragedy by refusing to accept simple answers for complex events. Thank you.